PreventionPays text, and there are numbers that are referred to as short codes. And that's what is powering the communication. So when somebody sends a text to you, they're sending it to your 10-digit phone number. When you send a message from the service, you're going to be sending it from a 5-digit number. And it's easier to remember. It's also going to be consistent across all of your clients. They're all going to get text from that number. So that short code, which you're on for this service, becomes a bit of a brand for you. And you can let people know that they can text 85511 for support or information or help with their application, whatever, help with their appointment, or whatever pops up, right? So using text as information, conveying information, but also as a communication channel. So that becomes a powerful tool for you. And as peer counselors, you know that the day-to-day communications is really what it's all about, and some of your clients have an aversion to making phone calls. Maybe a lot of your clients do, right? So you wind up kind of really struggling with trying to keep touch and have those encounters and get those contacts up, right? Well, text is going to help you achieve that at higher rates. Simple is to send a text out to 1 or 5 of your clients at one time, checking in with them, seeing how they're doing. They text back. Imagine that, right? People reply to your text, and do so in a really quick and efficient way. Even if they're at work, oh yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. I'm going to see my I get an ultrasound this week, and I'll tell you, what happens at that point, or whatever the case might be. But the little check-in becomes a few texts back and forth, and you're done. And then that's documented, and you have that encounter having happened. And so peer counseling gets a bit of a lift, right? Because you're now using the channel that they're going to feel better about, or maybe more inclined to use themselves. So that 5 or 6-digit number is the way that the messages are going to be passed to that all of your clients. And each of your clients will get messages from that number. How do they know it's you? Well, you establish that, right? You establish that. You can also begin all of your text chats, each of your messages, with your name, if you so chose to do that. Some peer counselors will choose to do that. And I'll show you how to do that. It's not a difficult little setting, and it's an option, right? So that you begin all your conversational texts with your name. But most of the time, since you've established the relationship with your clients, they know that when texts come from 85511, it's either going to be the educational text that they get, or it's going to be something from you, right? And so it's pretty simple on what kind of messages they expect from them. So they'll start to think of that number as being you. Yes?
I unmuted. Hey, Tom.
No, it's Jonathan.
Oh, sorry, Jonathan. Gosh.
Yeah.
So can they program that whatever the 5-digit number is, can they program that as a contact in their phone? So when we text them, it comes from us versus the 5-digit number?
Well, yeah, they should say WIC or whatever they need to. Yeah, you're right. But if they looked at if they didn't do that, right? If they didn't change to say WIC and put a picture on it or whatever, make that contact that way, then it would just be 85511, right? So the
Right.
the beginning of the beginning of it is going to be 855-1111. And yeah, they can put a picture on it or do whatever they want, whatever their phone lets them do to create a contact around that number. So it gets treated the same way as a family member or a friend or whatever. And they could even put in their peer counselor's name, right? So whatever they want to do.
Thank you.
Yep. And the service has the service is a couple places where you're going to be using the service most is the queue, and then the utility that puts the clients into the service. So there's a couple tabs that we'll look at today, and you're also going to be using the data markers in some creative ways, and we'll look at a little bit of that too. So, so the service in this document, which there's an FTP that I will send if you don't already have it. It's an FTP, so just a website where we post WIC-specific service-related content. So examples of canned message phrases, examples of other programs and what they've done, banners from people who've developed content that lets people know that they can text them, right? So part of your service might be, enticing individuals to learn more about WIC, so that it can be something that you're not always beginning the communication. You invite people in the community, like that part of your service might be that, inviting people to learn about WIC. And you'll have keyword specific and a call, what we refer to as a call to action, that you would do with that. It wouldn't have anything to do with the peer counseling work, but it would be an option for people in the community to learn more about WIC. So using text also is kind of like a flypaper, right, or attraction to your program. So this guide right here is about 17.
I wanted to just maybe see if you can just give us an overview of what you're going to be covering in the training, and I think maybe we could prioritize a couple things to show the peer counselors what the setup will be specifically for our agency, and use of data markers perhaps.
Yep, we're going to do that.
Okay.
So this guide is about 17 pages long. There's a website here that provides information about the service. This is the website you'll go to actually get into the service. Now, if you ever have a problem getting into the service, it might be that your browser, you're using an incorrect browser. So if you're not familiar with browsers is just the tool that you use to access the internet. So the only browser that we advise against using is Internet Explorer. Every other browser is acceptable. Google Chrome you can include in that. If you use Internet Explorer, please use another browser beside that one. And then the website that you go to do the work is right here. So you can bookmark that website, and then whatever page you last visited is the place that you'll go to when you log in. And then down here is information about finding clients, right? Step-by-step processes. So each of the segments in this guide go over each of the ways in which you would access the service or use the service. So examples, images of logging in, images of creating a group, finding a client, having a text conversation with a client, what a text conversation is, right? So the components of a text conversation, the beginning, middle, and end of one. And so here, opening, closing cases, right? And then the message status, which is crucial. That's really understanding, having a conversation, kind of like understanding how your phones work. You'll want to look at the message status and learn about that piece. So having a read of opening, closing cases, and then the message status will help you. And it's only a few paragraphs. But if you're a learner that learns well by reading something, then I encourage you to have a look at this guide. As I said, it's only about, I think it's about 16 pages long, and very easy, or 18 pages, and it's very easy to follow along with. And it gives you examples also of adding clients to the service. So real examples of what that might look like. Okay, so when you log in, and let me log out so that you can see, you just put in your email address, and then you're going to put in your password. And the FTP is going to have all of the information you need, including the guide. So please don't worry about the document that I show you or having access to that, because we put all that up on that website for you to take and download. We'll also make sure that we send around information as well. So there'll be a getting started email from Michael that will have a link to the FTP, but also the most important documents included in that email. Okay, and then when you log in, you're going to use your email address and the password. And the password is assigned to you at login. If you want to change or you lose your password, you can always change it. You can always click here to retrieve it. What happens is you go to a link and it asks you to create a new password. So kind of like any web-based service that you're familiar with, where you have login, username, password, and then if you lose your password, you can retrieve it. But it's not really retrieving it, it's just creating a new one. And you don't need to know your previous to create a new one. Okay, and then you come to the website that you're going to be looking at. Now, your peer counseling program is going to be, it's divided up into 3 clinics. You're going to see, when you click this change button up here, you're going to see each of the clinics that you have access to. So, for instance, if you have access to all 3, then you would click the change button, and you would see this one, but you would also see the other 2 that you have access to. So you can change and view which clinic you're going to look at. And the clinic is the beginning of how we're organizing clients. So we're going to be organizing them by what clinic they're associated with. Then we're going to be organizing them by whether they're prenatal or post, and then whether they're English or Spanish. And then we're going to use data markers to further group them. So that's how that will be the process that you'll go through in defining each of your clients and how they get grouped in the service. So if I'm going to add a new client to the service, I go to admin and then fully opt in. And then you put in a phone number, or you can upload an Excel spreadsheet. So let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to show a single case, and it's very simple how you're organizing clients as far as the Excel spreadsheets are concerned. You'll have a column for the phone number, you'll have a column for their name, and then if you're keeping track of the case manager, or in your case the peer counselor, then you would put that there in the 3rd column. That's it. So an upload would have, now I know that this particular Excel spreadsheet is going to be a prenatal, and it's going to be an English speaker, but I don't need to put that into this document, because That's being determined when we upload. I'll show you. So when I upload, I can either put the phone number in or I can browse, find my file, which is probably going to be the easiest way to do it, is just keep track of your clients, getting them into the service by having an Excel spreadsheet with the information as you saw there. That's going to be the quickest, most efficient way to upload clients. And there might be somebody who does client uploads that gets really good at it and handles all of them. It just depends. It depends on how you guys decide to interact with the service and use the service. So I'll find my my upload document, and all I'm doing is I'm just finding the one that I just showed you, right? The single case upload, single number test. And then I open it, and then it shows up right there in the little window here. And as you can see, it has a few requirements, right? It requires that you use XLS as the format. And we send you samples of upload files, so you could just use those as your templates. And then it requires that you have a column for the phone, and you title it phone, and then a column for the name and case manager. So rather than using the peer counselor for the header, please use case manager. That will auto-populate when you have a column for it. And then you have a welcome message going out to clients. At least I think I want to make sure you do. Let me see here. Oh, here it is. Perfect. Okay. Okay. All I'm doing is I'm just adding the welcome message because we did not add it here yet, and you need to add it here. So this is going to go out to MC Mom and MC Baby. Okay. Okay. So going back over here to the admin, fully opt-in, browse, upload, single client, test upload. Okay. Okay. And then down here, guys, is data markers. So you have the option to send an additional message at upload, which if you leave blank, you don't send an extra message. But it's possible to do that, right? It's possible to send another text at the point of opt-in. But what we're doing is we're handling that. We're sending an opt-in message. We're sending that greeting. So probably going to leave that blank unless you have something that you really need to also text the client at the time when you're adding them, a reminder about something that they have a point. I mean, you can use this as a time to send them one additional message. In this case, I'm going to leave it blank, so we just see an upload that happens without any additional message going to the client. And then down here are data markers that you can fill out for the client, right? And so one of the things that you guys are going to do is identify what group they're in. And so let's say that, as an example, I'm just going to use group 3. And then when I upload this client, it's going to upload the phone number. It's going to assign the case manager, or the peer counselor. And then it's also going to data mark this client by the group that they're in. And then down here is the critical piece that you want to make sure you know. So when you select the keyword, that determines what language they are and what educational text they'll get. So when I select, for instance, MC WIC Mom, that's prenatal. So let me explain each of the keywords. This is no text at all, no educational text, MC WIC. And that just represents putting somebody into the service. And you may use that. You might use that for moms who have limited messages on their phone, and they ask specifically to not get educational text. If you assign the educational text, it's for the prenatal, it's 25 messages. For the postpartum, it's 20, I believe. So it's not very many texts, and it's not a huge burden, but for some, it might be. So reserve the right to assign a client with no educational text. MC WIC appointment is, if you guys start to use appointment reminders, that keyword is available to you. MC WIC Mom, that's prenatal mom, right? English. And then MC WIC Mama, that's prenatal Spanish. MC WIC Baby is postpartum English, and MC WIC Bebe is postpartum Spanish. And then MC WIC Staff is if you guys want to ever use the service to text each other. That's it. Those are the keywords. And we may add keywords down the road for additional purposes, but it might be that it goes into a different queue, because this queue is just going to be for peer counseling. And so it's really important that we'll keep that way. And so if we do build additional capacity and we use the service for additional things, it'll probably be in a separate inbox. Same number, just separate inbox. Okay, so when I'm ready to upload a client, I just click this green button. And then it tells you up here. Now, if you have a list of 100 numbers, then it'll tell you we added 100 phone numbers to the service. Now, if you have 100 phone numbers and 5 of them are incomplete phone numbers, we're not going to add the incompletes, right? The service validates the mobile number when it's added, which is important. So and what happens to those invalid numbers? They remain in the box. So you can look at this box, it'll say up here, 98 were added or opted in, 2 were unable to be opted in. Please check box 1. And then the bad numbers will be right here. And then you can go back to the client, you can say, we have an incomplete phone number for you. But it's the service that's alerting you of that, right? So you can rely on the service to validate mobile numbers. All right, now where did this client go? So going over here to the users page, I can pull open this client by name. I can search by name or phone number. So I searched by phone number. Or I can search by name. Right? So either one of those search options. And then when you click on the phone number, then you see information about that client. Right? And so what we see is MC WIC Mom was used. So that's the program. That's the educational messages that they're getting. And then that welcome message that we talked about, which you guys have approved. So that is adding a client. You know, very simple couple-step process. You go to admin, you go to fully opt-in, you find your file, and you add whatever details you want to add, and then you choose which program or which message tracker, educational messages they're going to get. If they're not going to get any educational messages, you'll choose that. Okay. And then finding phone number by name or number. And then when we look at this case, over here are user attributes. So the client's phone number, the client's name, If you keep track of email addresses, you have that option. The keyword that they're opted into, the groups that they're in. Okay? And then I can add information to this profile. I can add notes. And this notes box isn't about sending a text to the client. It's about creating a note about the client. If you have an observation that you want to make sure that you keep as part of that client record, then you would write a note. Like, for instance, if you find out that having twins, high risk, right? You find that out about this client, then you could add it as a note. And then you just click the little green plus button, and then that will save to the client profile, which is right here, all down the right-hand side. So the queue is where you find the client, your email inbox. The SMS conversations and all of the educational messages run right down the middle of the page, always. And then the details about the client that you're viewing run down the right-hand side. And that's the organization of the dashboard. And you can also see things like the thing that we added, right? About the WIC ID, and then also the group identification. Now, if I want to converse with this client, I just click the open button, right? So I can open. You can either open from the queue, or you can open from the profile. And right here is the case manager, right? So we added that at the beginning. We can change that just by clicking it and then selecting who it changes to. Responder, the responder role gets assigned and unassigned all the time, because you may not be having a conversation that's ongoing, right? A conversation has a beginning, middle, and end. And let's look at that. So I need to have a conversation with this client. I can either open from here, or I can open from here. So let me open from here. So when I get the text box, well, then that's how I know that this client is now assigned to me as I'm the responder. And now I can send text to this client. And you can use hand type messages, or you can send canned messages. The canned messages can also be personalized by peer counselor. Now, canned messages they auto-populate. So it's just a simple, it's a simple little selection and then auto-populate, right? So canned messages are really helpful in doing routine communications. So if I begin a conversation with a canned message, I just select the one that I'm going to use and then click send. And then it sends it, right? And the delivery notification is right there. So when you scroll over a timestamp, you actually see when messages get delivered to the phone, which is important. You can know that if that particular message was actually delivered to that mobile phone. And so that, if you ever have a mom that rings you up, or you finally get in touch with them and they say, I've been texting you and you haven't replied back. Well, I didn't get any of those texts. But then you can look over their transcript and you can see that they were delivered. And so it's not about whether or not the phone or the message was delivered to the phone. It becomes about whether or not you have a correct mobile number for them. So you can use the delivery notifications as assurance that these messages are being sent. Now, where are my educational messages that get assigned and sent? Okay. That's in your show unsent. So there you go. When you show your unsent, you show all pending messages. And there they are, right? all the way to the very beginning, which the first message starts tomorrow. And then after that, it gets staggered, right? Every couple of weeks. And as you get closer to the pregnancy or the delivery, it goes weekly. Now, any of these messages can be canceled. So if mom has baby early, you can either allow unsent messages to go out, or you can cancel unsent messages. And to do that, you just red minus. It gives you a little warning that you're going to delete a message before it's sent, and it can't be undone. You just okay it. And then you can do that with as many messages as you need to. So it's very easy to correct unsent messages or make changes in them. So when a message gets sent from the unsent, it goes from that column to the column that is sent. And so you'll see the educational messages queue up in the string of sent content. And so if you have a client that asks a question about an educational text, which happens from time to time, whoa, can you tell me more about colostrum? And then they, you see, well, oh, okay, what prompted that? Well, this educational text about colostrum did. So you'll understand why somebody might ask. It won't come out of left field. In other words, you'll understand why that question was asked. When a text is sent to your queue, let's show you what that looks like. So when a client sends a text, you can be closed on the case and they can respond. Maybe your shift is ended, you're going home, they didn't reply to your text that you sent earlier in the day, you can close that case out. Because when they do reply, sure, when? It's gonna update. It's gonna alert you. Very simple, easy, intuitive. Audio alert, visual alert. You can control your audio and visual. Your audio just by unchecking these boxes. So if you don't like the audio alert, turn it off. The visual alert will also update, right? So highlighted yellow, blinking. If you put notifications on, then every 3 minutes, you'll get a pop-up window that says your queue has a message in it, has been replied to. And then to reply to a message, just click open. Right? So you're back in now in conversation mode. And then you can have a conversation with the client. Now you might use canned messages to work through that. Right? You might have a group of canned messages that are scheduling appointments. Right? And you have messages that work you through that. So we're going to be working with you guys to refine your canned messages. But that's the neat bit about canned messages. They can be grouped, and then they can really be set to work and be consistent with how you're going to be communicating with your clients, so that those canned messages aren't just wasted space over there. They're useful. They're useful for every possible scenario. Of course, there's going to be situations where you have to type messages. That's just the reality of peer counseling, what you do. And, a subject might meander down another path on how the kids are doing, how they like a particular school. I mean, whatever, and then that's, of course, not something that's going to be handled in your canned messages. And that's just texting them as you would. Thinking, and being familiar with how you text with your family and friends, but knowing that in this system, you have tools available to you to make it easier. And there are a couple questions which I will answer in a few moments. So please hold your questions and we'll go over them. Okay, now the other piece that we want to show you guys is the Groups tab. The Groups tab lets you send information to clients in groups, and groups can be built in a variety of ways. For instance, when you click Groups and you go to Show and you click New, you can create a group 3, right? And then you can find clients by data marker. And you put the data marker that is 3, group 3. And then you can add all to that group and save it. Now you've got a group 3 that you can send text to. Send group 3 this text. Hi, group 3. Don't forget, we're meeting this week at location. Okay. If you have any questions, text back or call us. So Groups tab is a wonderful way to scale up, send large numbers of people a single text all at one time. If they reply back to your group text, you get their message. Not everybody in the group. You get it. So it's not group texting in the way maybe you know it to be. You know, we've all been in that situation where we send out a group text and everybody replies back and they don't realize that everybody gets that message when they reply back. That's not the case with this service. The only people that get their messages are you. So sending a group message, type it. I don't forget our meeting this week. Please no children or kids. Something like that, right? I mean, I don't know what you guys would say, but that's an example. And then you select the date and time. If you don't put a date and time in here, then you can click send and it'll go out immediately to that group. I'm going to put a future date and time so we can look at it. I'll put tomorrow. Actually, I'll put one. I'm going to put just a couple minutes from now so we can see it. Okay. So when I'm happy with the date and time, then I click send. Group message created successfully. Now, if I didn't select a group, it would tell me. It would say you need to select a group in order to send this message. But this group could be my clients. All my clients I put in a group. Or all my clients that are prenatal I put into a group. So Groups tab is really, if you can really kind of be creative about how you use Groups tab. It can be really helpful that way. It doesn't just have to be the prescribed way in which you're going to be grouping clients. It can also be some other ways if in fact that's going to help you. But don't build groups if it's not going to help you. Where does this message show up? Processed. So it tells you when it was created, the date and time that it's going to go out, who created it, whether or not it was canceled, whether or not it, and then what group it goes to, and then how many messages are being created, how many clients, and then the content of the message. And then if you need to cancel a message to the group, just click cancel, as long as you catch it before it's supposed to go. Now let's say you grouped a client in there and they aren't supposed to be. And you have a choice, right? Cancel the whole group, reform the group, send the new message to the whole group, or find the client and cancel the group message for them only. That's probably the way you're going to do it. So go to users page, find the client that you're canceling the group message for, go to show unsent. It will be right there. Don't forget our meeting this week. Please, no children. So it'll be in the timeline of unsent messages according to the time when it's scheduled to go out. Don't want this to go to this client, so I can just cancel. And then that client won't get it. I can also cancel the group message as a whole just by catching it before it goes out. Then it's canceled for everybody. Right? So it's not this situation where you're going to get yourself in trouble. If you have a group message that you build your group and then you find out things change, then it's deciding on how you're going to cancel it. If it's going to be group wide or if it's going to be a single client cancel. So group messaging is really a neat part of the service. How do you get there? Groups tab, show, new, build your group, send to your group. That's it. Those are the steps. Very simple process, right? Just a couple clicks to building and then sending. Now, one other tool that you want to look at is group messages by keyword. So you always have the ability to send out a text to either everybody or the prenatal moms or postpartum moms or prenatal Spanish-speaking moms and prenatal English-speaking moms, postpartum English-speaking, postpartum Spanish-speaking, right? Always have that option to send to that group as a whole under the reminders tab, or everybody. If it's system-wide and you want to get a message out to everybody who's subscribed, then you can select all. You're just going to want to make sure that that message is bilingual, right? Because if you're sending it to everybody, you're sending to your English speakers and your Spanish speakers and all your groups. Okay. All right, guys, let's talk about answering some questions. Let's talk about answering some questions. Let me see. Okay, so voice texting with this service, voice texting. So dictating to your phone what text to send is what I think you're asking. And no, there is no dictation into anything that lets you do that. If you want to be efficient, then and you want to streamline the process, then it's going to be selecting canned messages, right? Picking something that you've already formed to send to the client. And canned messages can be set and customized by peer counselor. If a peer counselor ever changes for a client, it's just clicking over here and changing the case manager to whoever it's going to change to. Can I unselect a single participant if I've selected all? Yes, we looked at that. I believe that was in reference to the group messages, and yes, you can unselect a single participant and cancel that message for just them. Another thing to know about this user attributes section, when you, as you can see here, as you add groups to a client, that will be stored in their profile. So, like for instance, because I know that this client is going to be in group 3, and I group them in group 3, that then saves. But if I add another group, like my group for just the cases that I work with, then whatever you name that group will also appear in that client's profile. So they can be in multiple groups. They can be in group 3 because they're going to get messages about the meetings. They're going to be in Letty's group or Jonathan's group because they're the peer counselor and that's their specific clients. So a lot, and then of course they're in the primary group, which is how they start, right? The keyword that we choose to start them. And that's it. That's what you need to know about that group, the groups and the keyword and how that populates in the profile. You can add notes to a client and data markers to a client and not have to be open on the client, right? You don't have to be in conversation mode and opened on the case. You can just find the case and then click on it and then add your data marker, whatever it is. And then now we've got this guy grouped. So if you don't handle it at opt-in, you can always handle it after the fact. And then when we got a groups tab, guess who's going to be available to group in that group, right? When we go to data markers, we go 3. There it is. Okay. Now, and you can also edit the group that you want to work in. So you don't always have to create a new group, right? You can edit group 3. Just add whoever needs to be added. Data marker. Add and save. So it's a reformed group. It's just that we added a member to it. Okay. Now it's not gonna. You can add an opted out client to a group, but it's not going to send them a message. So when you saw that client, that 805, that's my colleague's phone number, he's actually opted out of the service, the 805 number. So you see records of clients that are opted out. It's just that you can't send messages to them anymore, but you can put them in groups and they can be part of groups, and their status changes all the time. People can opt out, but then opt back in. It's the whims of the end user. In most cases with WIC, they don't opt out because they want to get the text from you. But in some cases, they do. Stop sending messages to me, right? They're opted out. And it can be a temporary thing or it can be permanent, that they have moved on and aren't getting WIC services anymore. So they have that right always to take stop and cancel the messages. And that happens automatically. You don't have to police the system or make sure that you're opting clients out that don't want to be texted. All right, any other questions that we have? I saw a couple questions that were written in. There might be some questions that you guys have just based on this session that we can address now. Do you guys have any questions? Do you want to unmute and have a little discussion, or